So there's a phrase every military leader knows by heart, and it's a simple one. The standard you walk past is the standard you accept. I am to show you in the next few minutes why this single idea is one of the more expensive blind spots potentially in your business and how you can fix this really, really quickly, for sure, before next Monday morning. And so, with this in mind, welcome, friends, to Roll Call with Cujo. Is your team playing to win, or are they just running out the clock? And what's your role in all of this? Fellow leaders, welcome to Roll Call with Cujo, a place for leaders who want to win bigger. Let's together get ready, let's prepare, let's go. Welcome back to Roll Call with Cujo, and for our new members of the audience, welcome. It's always great to be here, digging deeper into the concepts and principles that our team introduced to you by way of our workshops, our breakout sessions, our keynotes, and the Top Gun Teamwork Program. And if you didn't get a chance to review episode 1, I'd say go back and do so before you watch today. Because in episode 1, I talked about the importance of how we enter accountability, how we come into a debrief by way of our mission, objectives, and plan. And since today is on standards, really what we're talking about is what it is that we're going to measure against when we debrief. And it's important that we always start this way. It's always important that we know what the standard is against which we're going to measure, because we want to make sure that we've achieved that standard. We want to achieve mission success and equip ourselves with the ability to do better next time. And truly, of all the things that we could talk about, values, mission statements, culture, I think standards matter the most, because this is the mechanism that's going to help us to be accountable. It's the mechanism that allows us to be able to achieve performance. And I want you all to leave this week's episode with one standard that you can instill to help make next week go better. Good. And so with that, welcome to episode 2. And I think the big idea for episode 2 is standards are not what we say, standards are what we tolerate. Oh, and this is such an important thing to consider. And I learned this early on in my journey. As many of you know, those of you that have seen me in a workshop setting, you know that my first employer was not the United States Air Force, but rather a franchise restaurant based out of Atlanta, Georgia, called Chick-fil-A. And if you think about it, if you've been to a Chick-fil-A, you know what I'm talking about. You go into a Chick-fil-A restaurant and you compare it against all other restaurants that serve chicken sandwiches and chicken in general specifically. And the difference isn't the menu. The difference 100% is the standard at the counter, the standard at the bathroom, the standard at the drive-through, the standard when you thank the kid who gave you your order, who comes back to you and says, "My pleasure." And they do so with a smile. And while you're sitting there in the restaurant minding your own business, somebody comes up to you and asks you, "Can I get you a refill? Can I bring you another sauce packet? Can I do something to serve you?" All these restaurants in a very hyper-competitive, very, very, very lucrative industry are competing for the same customers. Chick-fil-A, it outpaces their competitors year in and year out because of the standards that they maintain. And it's a huge deal. And they don't tolerate standards violations. If you try to get away with not living in accordance with their standards, you're not going to work there. And that's such an important point to emphasize for us. So I want us to think today, how well do standards serve us in our places of work? What does it look like? What does it feel like around here? What is the enforcement mechanism? And then what are we going to do about it if we're not satisfied? And everything starts when it comes to standards with making sure that they're set. And this is an area that may be a growth opportunity for us. I mean, at its core, all of us want our teammates to perform exceptionally well. And some of us say it. We say, "Hey, I want you to play hard. I want you to own it." But not all of us have that in any way documented, what it means to play hard, what it means to own it, and what it means to violate. And when the standards aren't documented, number one, they don't exist. Number two, they cannot be enforced. Number three, it creates confusion for everybody and it makes accountability impossible. And I tell you what, it's been interesting to me to watch how this is played out in the businesses that I serve. And VMAX Group, we're working with small to medium-sized businesses often, people that are working really, really hard, leaders who are overwhelmed with volume and trying to navigate disruption. And a lot of times, standards aren't documented. But there's an expectation that everybody knows what's expected of them. And the problem is that if we haven't been clear about it up front, we cannot expect that anybody knows what's expected of them, even amongst people who should know. For example, got a dear friend. We used to teach together a million years ago in the F-15. He now works in a civilian company with other fighter pilots who are now working in the same civilian company. And one day we were having a phone call and he said, one of the things that frustrates me, Cujo, is that my coworkers here, the fighter pilots who know better, they show up late all the time. I mean, it's regular. We have the Zoom call, minutes go by and they're starting to slowly show up. And it's unacceptable that they're not showing up here on time. So, well, what's your expectation of on time? He said, Cujo, we all know fighter pilots, early is on time. If you're not early, you're late. I said, okay, I got you. In the macro sense, yes, that is the previous ethos. That is how we lived. But I asked him, is that expectation written down? He said, well, it doesn't need to be, Cujo. I said, no, I don't care whether or not it needs to be. I'm just asking you right now, if I were to come work for you, would that expectation be written down somewhere where I could read it? He said, no. I said, all right, let's just acknowledge this. That standard doesn't exist. Because if it's not written down, it truly doesn't exist. They said, oh, Cujo, I disagree. I'm like, okay, well, fine, let's agree to disagree on this thing. But this idea that everybody knows what the standard is flawed. And if it's not written down, you have no case. And if you don't have a case, accountability suffers. It's got to be documented. Good, so that's point number one. Point number two, it's got to be lived. So it's one thing to document, it's another thing to live it, and it's got to be consistently lived, and it has to be modeled by the leader first. Around here at VMAX Group, we talk about having a shared standard that everybody has to abide by, and the leader is held to a higher one, meaning we can never in any way violate what it is that's the standard around here. Because if we do, we say that it doesn't exist. And this is a really, really important point. We learned this in the aviation space. Part of our standards include following pre-flight checklists. And it's interesting because if you fly the same airplane for years and you're flying the same mission sets for years, it's easy to get complacent and to kind of skip things and to move past stuff and to violate the same order, the same words every time. And what we've learned in the aviation space is the moment that you become complacent and you violate those things is the moment that you become a menace to others, and you're going to cause some damage. You might even kill somebody. And so the more senior pilots that have been around for the longer period of time, it's even more important that they never violate these standards because, number one, they can become a menace to others. Number two, their modeling behavior says what's important around here. And if they tend to skip things, then the newer hires, the younger pilots, the people that don't have the experience, they're more likely to violate them too because they're following the examples of their leaders, and that sets up a really dangerous environment. And so leaders have to model. As Dr. Timothy Clark says in the work that he does in the 4 stages of psychological safety, the most important thing that leaders can do is model behaviors we expect of others. And then that brings us to the third component when it comes to standards, and that is the enforcement. And standards have to be enforced. They have to be enforced immediately. They've got to be enforced respectfully. And they also have to be enforced publicly. And this is an interesting concept because we've all been taught, and I actually subscribe to in many cases, the mantra, hey, praise in public, punish in private. But it's different when it comes to our standards, and here's why. If we have a shared standard and somebody violates that standard on the team, and I as the leader don't talk about it publicly, even if I do so privately, the team may not understand that I've done this, and they may even anticipate, because we don't always assume positive intent in every team setting, they may assume that I've given said individual a pass. And especially if the person who violated the standard is a dear friend of mine, maybe a family member of mine, it'd be very easy for folks who are kind of oriented towards the negative to assume, which is dangerous always, that I've given said individual a pass, and then to say, well, around here a standard doesn't matter. And so I actually believe when it comes to standards enforcement, it has to be done publicly. And we do this in the fighter space. We have standards that are documented. And there are certain standards where if we violate them, we owe $5 to the squadron kitty. And the payment isn't a financial thing as much as it's a public evidence of humility and paying for the violation. So the way it works is we have our list of standards when we come into the debrief. If we violated a standard that has an associated $5 penalty associated with it, we self-identify. Hey, I violated the standard today. I owe $5. Here's my $5. And publicly, we're calling ourselves out. And what that does is two things. Number one, it says we know what the standard is and we're abiding by it. And number two, it actually increases trust amongst the members of the team, because when we don't have to be called out, but when we call ourselves out, it's a really powerful statement to the rest. And if we don't call ourselves out and somebody else sees that the standard has been violated, they will actually bring it up. Not in an effort to publicly blame or shame, but just to say, hey, listen, here's the standard. You missed it and you actually owe $5, to which the person who violated it immediately acknowledges and says, yep, I got it. And so we've got to set the standard, it's got to be lived, and it's got to be enforced. And when it's not, we are not our best. Now, in order to study this, in order to understand it, in order to apply, I highly recommend this book. And this book was given to me. This is my personal copy given to me by a good friend of mine, Mr. Chris Paradiso. And he said, you got to read this once a year, Cujo. And so I took it home and I read it, and I understand exactly why he said what he said. And Horst Schulze, if you're not familiar, was the guy behind Ritz-Carlton. He's a big fan of standards. And if you don't mind me, I'd like to just read to you real quick one of the standards that Ritz-Carlton had, at least when Horst Schulze was in charge. And the standard was offering a great welcome. So Ritz-Carlton, known for offering a great welcome. Here's what Horst Schulze says about offering a great welcome. You need to show immediately that you're glad the person has chosen to come your way, even if they haven't bought anything so far and you're not sure if they even want to. I've taught my hotel staff that this welcome needs to happen as soon as the person gets within 10 feet of them. Immediately, they must say with genuine sincerity, good morning or good afternoon. And if this doesn't happen, the potential customer can start to feel self-conscious. Am I in the right place? Do I belong here or not? But if the welcome is warm and immediate, the individual makes a subconscious decision that's positive. They're willing to explore further. And he's got all kinds of explanations for why it's 10 feet and not 50 feet. And he's talked about why all the comment cards point how important this is and how this standard leads to others. And I was thinking about this as I checked into a hotel recently. I suppose I'll withhold the brand, but I'm a frequent customer of said brand, and I came to this hotel front desk. It was late. I'd been traveling for a long time. And the agent at the desk said, hang on a minute, I'll be with you soon. And he never looked at me. He just kept on looking at his computer, kept on typing in the computer. And I have zero doubt that this individual is working on something important that he thinks was very, very important. No doubt he was doing his job. But I would tell you, as I stood there patiently, late at night after a super long day of delayed travels, I wondered why I was spending my hard-earned money there, where it was clear that I wasn't the focus. I wasn't that company's number one concern. And I wondered why I wasn't at a Ritz-Carlton. And I'm sure if you ask the general manager, he said, no, our standard is customer service. It's excellent, exceptional, best-in-class customer service. But you wonder to yourself, is it written down? Is it really lived? Is it enforced? That night it wasn't, and it left an impression on me. And I will never go to that hotel again unless I have to. And so I say again, standards matter. Now we get into the trap when it comes to standards. 4 traps, actually, that I'd like to share with you today. First trap is the everybody knows trap. But it's never been said out loud, so I would argue they don't know. Kind of going back to my fighter pilot buddy who said, we all know. Okay. I wish we could say yes. I wish that were the case, but if it's never been stated, and especially if it's never been documented, they don't know. So don't assume that they do. Second trap is, hey, I said it once. And I'll tell you, if you say it once, it's probably more of a suggestion than anything else, whereas a standard needs to be repeated. One of the things about Ritz-Carlton is they got together every single morning under Horst Schulze's command, as it were, and they reviewed one of their many standards. And the entire staff at every hotel would sit there in the morning and talk about one of their standards. And by reinforcing it every day, it, no kidding, became a standard. Mentioning it once is something that was either misheard, misunderstood, or just went in one ear and out the other. It's a suggestion at best. It's not a standard. It's got to be repeated. Third trap. I'm going to let it slide this time. And this goes back to what I said at the intro. Hey, the first time we walk past it, that's the moment that we've killed the standard. Because it says that around here, maybe it really isn't that important. Around here, maybe you do get a pass for violating this thing. And the moment that we start to go down that path, it's a slippery slope. It can wipe that standard out. Final point that I'd make, this is always semi-controversial. If we talk about standards in public, but privately we either give an exception or we talk about it outside of the team environment, the team can sense an exception to the rule. And when there are exceptions to the rule, the values become a joke. The standard falls apart. It goes poof in the distance, and it's done. And so these are things that have to be publicly discussed and publicly called out. And it's best if the teammates are calling each other. It's actually best if I'm self-identifying. I broke the standard. Here's my $5, and off we go. Good. So with all of this, what are we going to do different next Monday? And what I would propose is we do this. We pick one standard that's very important around here that we've been letting slide. And we're going to write it down. And maybe we write it in an email, one sentence, very, very specific. And then we bring it up at our next meeting. And if you have a Monday meeting, it'd be perfect that you introduce this standard at your Monday meeting. And you tell everybody why this standard matters, just like Horst Schultz did here with making people feel valued when they walk within 10 feet of the front desk. We tell them why it matters, and then we hold the line for 30 days, every meeting, every interaction. We give feedback on whether or not we did what we set out to do. Ultimately, we bring the standards into our debriefs. And this goes back to episode 1. We know what the mission is, what the objectives are, what the plan is, and how it is that we're going to bring our mission to successful conclusion. We have to ask ourselves at the end of 30 days, did this standard and the way that we enforced it change behaviors? And did we at any point tolerate what we shouldn't have? And how are we going to lead differently moving forward as a result of this? And that would be a really good way to take action on this second new Roll Call with Cujo episode. Good. And so that's it. You know your action. You know how important this is. You know what it is that you can do differently for next time. And I'll tell you that I'm so glad to be back here with you, talking about the things that really matter in terms of team dynamics and really flesh out what it is that we talk about in all of the work that we do here at Team VMAX Group. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what next week is going to contain. I'm not quite sure where it is we're going to go, but what I do know is it's going to be something of value to you. So if you would, please make sure that you click the subscribe button. Make sure that you share this message with your friends. Make sure that you let us know in your feedback what it is that you'd like for us to talk about, and know that I look forward to seeing you again next week. Okay, you've got the playbook. Now go run the play. Don't just listen, act. And thank you for joining Roll Call with Cujo. If you found that this was helpful, please leave us a review. Please click subscribe, and most importantly, please share it with a leader who needs it. Let's get back out there and keep winning.